Hello everybody and welcome to Derp your Hooves. Today we are flying the Cessna Skymaster again. Right now I'm just kind of setting it up, getting it ready for the flight here. Just kind of setting it up the way I like it. So, I already did a review on this aircraft and I think it's a really good plane. Especially among all the Cessnas they've had out so far, I really like the Skymaster. But I wanted to say that I've, had some issues with this aircraft, where I've kind of, had a problem landing it. So today we're actually taking off from Van Nuys Airport, and we're going to make a big circle and then just land in Van Nuys Airport. And so I just, set the aircraft up, turned the fuel pumps on low, gave it a notch of flaps, full throttle. So there are many tutorials that you can do in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020, and I've done a few of them, and they all seem to be kind of almost like airplane particular. But if you're flying a different plane, you really can't do some of their tutorial videos in maybe the aircraft you really want to fly. So, like, the 172 which is not this plane, obviously, is a really great plane, and it's a great plane to learn how to fly in. I have no doubt about that. Oops, trim. And, the Skymaster doesn't fly like the 172. The Beechcraft Bonanza doesn't fly like the Skymaster, and they don't fly like the F-14 or the F-18 and so on. And it makes perfect sense that just like any other pilot, that you would want to learn on something easy. The 172, Cessna 172 is, a plane that a lot of people learn on while trying to get their private pilot's license, so I'm told. The 152, I know there's other aircraft, but usually some of the fairly easier planes to fly are what people learn on, and then you learn the fundamentals. And then you would apply the fundamentals towards any aircraft. And that's, kind of like anything. You have to learn how to walk before you can run. The military doesn't let anybody be a fighter pilot. Stuff like that. So, I mean, they're not going to take someone up in an F-15 and say, oh, no, you can't do it. I mean, no, they're going to, you got to work your way up to that to qualify for that training. And again, I want to say that, I'm not a certified GA pilot or fighter pilot. So there are other people who do have pilot's license who know more about the process than I do, but I do have an understanding of the basic fundamentals. So anyhow, I was having lots of problems with this aircraft, where it's one of my favorites. I've flown it in previous versions of Microsoft Flight Simulator, and I found it to be a great plane. So I'm just going to call in for a landing here.
Van Nuys Tower Delta Echo Romeo Papa. Yankee is 6 miles northwest 6,100 feet with Mike to land.
Delta Echo Romeo Papa. Yankee Van Nuys Tower. Altimeter tree 0.1 with 3 4 at 1 4. Fly left downwind runway tree 4 left.
Fly left traffic runway tree 4 left Papa. Yankee.
And that should be probably the last of the chatter from that until we land. So, you know, there's all kinds of material you can buy. If you want to be a private pilot, you're obviously going to have to take lessons and classes, and I bought a book on, one of the study manuals on, how to fly a plane. Forgot what it's called, but I read it, and there's lots of interesting pointers that have, helped with this simulator, and would help if I was ever to obtain my private pilot's license. That book would probably be required. So, if you ever want to take your flying to the next level, treating this then a little bit more than a simulator, I guess, or more than a game, it's kind of advisable to, learn how to turn and how to navigate. And I mean, it's kind of what some people do with this. Anyways, so I was having problems. Stop blowing my own horn here. And I was having problems with this aircraft where, I don't know, like 14 years ago, 12 years ago, 13 years ago, in a different version, when I had Microsoft Flight Simulator 2004, that version of the Skymaster was a little easier to fly. Some of these newer models in Flight Sim 2020, little different, little touchy, and some of the real pilots have chimed in, with their, comparisons of how the planes actually stack up. Anyhow, so again, I was having problems taking off and landing, and calibrated my rudder pedals, and just messed with things because I wasn't understanding what was going on. And the problem, I guess, really is me, where I have to learn how to fly and land this plane, or find something else to fly. And so I was told by a friend of mine who's also an aviation enthusiast who has a sport pilot's license, these twin boom airplanes, twin tail planes are a little floaty on landing. And I've actually read that on some of the forums, and even been told that by, at least another person, that some of these, planes like the P-38 and the Skymaster, tend to float a little bit, unlike the 172. Now, it's kind of what I've experienced because I've flown this plane, and I do have a slight mod for to make this the turbo mod. So it's got a little more power than the standard version, but not much. But either way, learning how to fly it with that different power curve, and the mod was done very well, by the way. Either way, my landings have been kind of just garbage. And I thought it was my rudder pedals, so I calibrated them, and I thought maybe, so I, fixed dead bands, and which is something that you have to do. You have to kind of calibrate your equipment because not everything, out of the box is great. And I was still having some issues sometimes landing, not just in bad conditions, but, just in general on a nice day when there's really no crosswind or, anything, and just, takeoff and landing, just drifting to the left, drifting to the right, braking, having differential brakes on my rudder pedals. Just, again, is it the aircraft? Is it the way it was created, or is it me? Is it that, the twin tails do that versus the single tails? And there are some actual pilots that have said, yeah, sometimes they do. I even actually had a pilot who said that he was I think it was a chief pilot for an airline, or he was a commercial pilot, and he flew the Carenado 337, and then it's a solid aircraft, and it's, it doesn't do that. So, I mean, the constructive criticism would be, it's you. And this takeoff and landing is actually about as perfect as I could get with it, going center line, I mean, really trying to, fly this thing right, because all of the techniques that you're being taught, or all the techniques that they teach GA pilots and pilots in general, are, so that you can go out and fly a plane, and, if there are adverse conditions, that you can land it, and, versus, crash it. So, I mean, again, I'm going to say I think this is a great aircraft, even if I take the mod off. I still think it's a great aircraft, but it is set up more like a later version of the Carenados. I've read there were some that had much more power and turbos, and so the specs are a little closer to that. But that doesn't really affect the flight dynamics, and it shouldn't affect the flight dynamics of the plane. So, I mean, here we are, and we're obviously making a very large circle to take off and then come back and land. And it is one of my first successful takeoff and landings in a long time in this aircraft. So I'm very, I guess, proud of myself that I did it. But again, I mean, you have to practice and practice and practice. And I even, as I've read in some of these pilot, in the pilot study guide, that, from experienced real life pilots, that sometimes your landings are not so great, that you're going to have landings that you're not so proud of. So I'm not sure if anybody does have any kind of issue with some aircraft, and they say, oh, but I always want to learn how to fly this, and the plane is garbage, and well, there are some planes for this sim that are not great, and that really, I would even have to agree with that, ever flown in the actual plane, not this one in particular, that I would say, yeah, just I don't see the realism in some of them. And I mean, that's great. It's a simulator, it's not real life. But I mean, again, I just want to say, if there's a plane out there and you really like it, and whatever it is, I mean, just keep practicing. Keep.
Papa, Yankee wind 05, 8 of 8. Clear to land runway tree, 4 left.
Clear to land runway tree 4 left, Papa. Yankee.
Just keep at it. And one of the reasons I'm also saying this is because I don't think I've ever really talked about this in any of my videos so far, but plenty of people could fly a plane that might not be able to in real life for whatever reasons, health reasons, but definitely can fly it in a simulator. And if it's something that you want to do, don't let people tell you that you can't. Discover it for yourself, whether you can or you can't. Don't let other people hold you back. So, even a derp like me, who may not be able to do certain things, I can definitely do this, and you can too. And that's about as good as I've ever gotten it. But I'm just saying again, if someone tells you you can't,
Papa, Yankee exit, runway when able.
you really never know until you try. So, I hope you guys who are flying are enjoying this sim. And honestly, guys, I look forward to seeing you guys in these skies.
Papa, Yankee exit, runway when able. Papa, Yankee contact ground on 121.7.
121.7 for Papa, Yankee.
Before you go, if you like what you saw, don't forget to like and subscribe.